As you're leaving the military, the Haiti earthquake happens. And some people watch it on TV and send some checks or empathize, but you decided to go show up. Can you tell us a little bit about that story?
Yeah, so I joined the Marine Corps in the fall of 2005. I served for 4 years. And so I got out in the fall, late fall of 2009, the last week of October. The plan was I was going to apply to graduate school, go get my MBA. The economy was in shambles. It's 2009. And I just got off two really hard, brutal combat deployments. So I'm thinking, like, okay, 2 years to get some space would be good. So 2 months later, in January of 2010, I'm sitting around, I'm waiting for these grad school decisions to come back, and the Haiti earthquake happens. And I had never thought about disaster response really. I think it was a combination of a couple of things, right? It was seeing just how horrific that disaster was. And this was playing out live on CNN. For people that don't recall, I mean, they estimate 100 to 150,000 people died instantly in that earthquake, and another 100+ thousand people died in the coming weeks and months. One of the worst humanitarian catastrophes of the last century. Just 100 miles off our shore. And then there was this empathy, this compassion for the suffering that was happening on the ground. And then, if I'm being completely honest, there was like this cocksure young Marine who thought that he was invincible and probably had an overinflated sense of self, who thought, surely I can go and help. This is exactly what I do for a living. And there was a lot of naivete in that. And so after, I don't know, 5 or 6 hours of watching the news, I finally called one of the organizations that I knew was on the ground. And I tried to maybe drop my voice an octave and convince this woman who picked up the phone that I was the most important person in her world and that she should allow me to deploy with her teams to Haiti and help manage operations on the ground. And of course she said, "Hey kid, why don't you just hang up the phone and text us $10?" And I, that obviously that was really irritating to me at the time. But of course, fast forward a decade, running a global humanitarian organization, if some idiot called me after the Haiti earthquake and told me how special he was, I'd tell him to text me $10 too. So I don't begrudge her or them at all. But in the aftermath of that phone call, I started calling Marines that I'd served with and friends, and we organized a team of veterans and doctors to go down to Haiti. We went down 4 days later, got into Port-au-Prince. Things were still, I mean, it was like a Civil War battlefield.
You have all this military training, this logistical training you can handle. You and the rest of the team can handle themselves, in some adverse situations.
That was the logic that I was trying to apply. I mean, there's elements of it that are true. We got on the ground in Haiti, and again, for listeners that aren't as familiar, so massive earthquake, poorest nation in the Western Hemisphere at the time, total corruption, a lack of government services before the earthquake, and then a total evaporation of government services following. So no police, no military, the whole government bureaucracy crumbled alongside the buildings, and so total vacuum. And so, yeah, it was dangerous, and there were elements of the military training that were probably helpful. And it's not just the navigating some of the, like, the potential for violence, but also just like, hey, can you throw a pack on your back and climb down this ravine across this rubble and possibly carry somebody out? Or you get down there and the first time you see an amputated limb, are you going to freeze up, or have you seen it before? And, tragically, I'd seen a lot of that stuff before. And so, there were elements of that worked. Now, again, but there were a lot of things that we didn't know anything about, how these situations evolve and unfold, and what, the various layers of operational control and authority were, and how to navigate that. And maybe in some sense, our ignorance of those things allowed us to actually operate effectively on the ground because we weren't encumbered by the system. But man, I think we're lucky that we got out of there with our lives and limbs, and we're fortunate because the result was this organization that's evolved from there into something that's really special today, all by accident. That small team of 8 volunteers that crossed the border was the founding Team Rubicon. And, fast forward 13 years, we've got 150,000 volunteers across North America. So pretty remarkable, the humble beginnings that organization started with.